Okay.
Hey everybody, I'm Mark Smith with the Cabarrus County Beekeepers, and this is
Bob Blackwelder with the Cabarrus County Beekeepers.
There you go.
Have been for a long time.
There you go. We had to come inside this time. It's about what, 92 degrees.
Yep, at least.
It feels like over 100.
Yep, it's hot.
Yeah.
It's past hot. And
Yeah.
again, like I told Mark, a fat old man like myself tries to stay cool as much as he can.
Yeah. Well, it makes me sweat just looking out the window.
Yeah, like I said, it looked like it could thunderstorm.
That's right. Well, there might be one close by. You just never know.
But this is what, July, the end of July.
This is the end of July.
We should have had our July meeting this past Friday,
Yeah.
which of course was canceled. And that's a shame, but that's how it works sometimes.
That's how it goes. And what we've actually done, most of you already know, we've canceled everything through the end of September, but we'll talk about that at the end of the video. So Bob, it's hot, it's dry.
Yep.
What are the bees doing?
Well, oddly enough, what I've seen, the bees are trying to forage a little bit in the mornings.
Yeah.
Okay, in the mornings, they're trying to forage. And then by about midday, you start seeing more and more bees coming back and not going back out. And that tells me that last trip of the day was not beneficial.
Yeah.
Okay, and so they don't keep wasting trips. Bees are tremendously efficient. And we don't give them enough credit for that because they're actually smarter sometimes than we are.
Yeah.
Because they won't waste that extra trip. So you start seeing them more and more now. Like I say, starting at about lunchtime, really ganging up on the landing boards and on the front of the hive.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not worth that return trip. And they don't want to go in the hive because that just crowds and overheats the hive that much more.
Yeah.
And again, now some of those bees will then start foraging for water, especially when the temperature gets to mid-90s. You'll see a lot of bees. That's right at brood temperature, you know, right about what we got right now, 93 or so. And so a lot of those bees with not foraging activity going there will actually forage for water. Yeah. To help cool the colony.
Yeah.
So you'll see some of that going on.
And I had a request on the Facebook page the other day for help at a swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, what in the world are the bees doing to my swimming pool?
You know, and oddly enough, within the past week, I've gotten 2 calls about pools and bees.
Yeah.
And that can be a hard issue. It really is a hard issue sometimes. The bee's going to get water. They're going to go get water. But again, you got to remember, bees are efficient, so they want to go to the closest source of dependable water. Yeah. Okay. They also like water that's a little, shall we say, tainted. When I say tainted, that's with the salts and the chlorines that people put in pools. Yeah. That's actually more attractive to them. That's like I've told people for years. Bees are more attractive to cattle water holes and with cattle around water troughs, and not necessarily the fresh water in the water trough the cows are drinking, but the water the cows are standing in and, shall we say, urinating in. Yeah. Because those minerals are coming through the cows into that water, and the bees are more attractive because they want those minerals. Yeah. And those salts. Yeah. The old timers years ago, back at my great grandfather's time, it was a common practice, especially in the spring and the fall, to salt their bees. It's a practice
I've done that before.
You know, actually to salt the top of the frames.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Yeah, they salt the top of the frames.
Well, what I did was I took a old 8-inch cement block, set it up on the edge. You know, you got 2 little holes in it.
Yeah.
And I went to the feed store and got one of these little salt cakes, and just set in there on that web. And I guess the moisture and humidity, you know, made it where they could work it. And actually, the first time I went and checked it, there was bees all over it. And it's like, man, that's pretty cool. Bees prefer some salt and minerals that way. Okay, so they'll go to it. That makes it hard to deal with pool situations. Yeah. And sometimes a beekeeper says, well, I've got water out there for my bees. But again, he may have a little tray of water out there somewhere. But again, you got to say, how attractive is that? It can get too close to the colony. You remember, they have a tendency not to look real close to the colony. That's right. And so if it's 50 yards away, that's a lot better than being 3 or 4 foot from the colony. Okay, yeah. A lot better. But even then, you got to watch the situation. Bees don't like vertical sides, okay, because they don't really want to fall in the water, okay. And so you want a sloped area from the land on, and the area they land on needs to really be dry. Yeah. They want to keep their feet dry.
So they after just moisture. A lot of times even on sand and stuff around the edge of ponds, you see them land on the dry and go up to where it's just barely moist on the sand. They're not going to the actual edge of the water.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't take much moisture for them. And a good way to do that, if you got a pan that you can keep water in, is put a sloped surface. Use small rocks or sand, a board maybe.
Yeah.
And that board, the middle of it, put you a strip of towel, just a regular old terry cloth towel down the center of it. That will wick moisture up and keep that end and the bottom in the water.
Yeah.
And let that whip moisture up a flat slope and gives the bees a dry place to land and then ease down the slope to be able to get to the water.
Yeah.
That works amazingly good, especially if you sprinkle a little bit of cattle mineral salt in the water.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't take much, you know what I mean? For every gallon of water, I'd say no more than a teaspoon.
Yeah.
And that's more attractive to bees. But again, once they find a site and they're working that pool, it's hard to convert them.
Yeah.
It really is hard to convert them. The best solution I have for it, and some pool owners don't like my solution, and they told me they don't like my solution, is deny the bees access to the water, okay? When you deny them access to the water for a day or two, guess what? They go to another water source. And remember, when they find a water source, they stay loyal to that water source.
Right.
Just like they do a particular flower source. They stay loyal to it. And so you can get them to go to another source if you deny access. Easiest way to deny access is when you're not using the pool, cover it.
Right.
Put a pool cover on it, or tarp over it, something to deny the bees access to water.
Yeah.
Lots of times they prefer to be on the pool decks and stuff, okay, or even towels have been wet and hanging up to dry. But you see them a lot on pool decks. Again, the splashing, sometimes they'll get in the pool, and sometimes on the edge they'll get wet and fall in the pool. And I've seen small kids practice this a little bit. Once they overcome their fear of bees, is actually take their finger and go up under the bee and let the bee, of course the bee is wanting out of the water,
Yeah.
and let the bee just ride on his finger, and then he just tosses them out down the yard and keep on going.
Yeah.
So it's not something to be terrible fearful of, but it can develop into a little aggravation problem.
Yeah.
Especially with real small kids, and they doing a lot of splashing on, you know, around the pool.
Yeah.
But denying access to the water is the best solution.
Yeah. So, moving on, I know the internet hadn't got to Walker Road yet, so you don't look at a lot of Facebook.
No, I'm not there. I'm not there. I think I'm fortunate to have a telephone, to be honest.
On a lot of the different Facebook pages and forums and stuff, new beekeepers right now are asking a lot of questions about bearding. What are these bees doing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a swarm?
Mm-hmm.
So could you kind of talk about that? And especially for new beekeepers, when they open a colony right now to do an inspection, what should they see?
Okay. Bearding is a natural process. Okay, that's what bees are supposed to do. And that really, when I see heavy beards on a colony, one thing that tells me is it's hot weather, and that's a healthy colony. Okay, that's a healthy colony at this point. They're content. Now, when I see bees at random flying around the hive, okay, and a lot of darting in the edges, again, that can be robin bees. So you got to really watch yourself about robin bees this time of year. If you don't disturb that colony, you typically don't have a problem with that much. But when you go to work a colony this time of year, I'd say work it in the mornings. Don't work it past lunchtime for sure. One thing, you'll get too hot. The bees will get too hot. Nobody likes it, you or them. And so try to work in the mornings and try to keep your inspections as short as you can.
Yeah.
The shorter the better.
Oh, this time of year?
And so,
This time of year, as soon as I see an egg,
yep.
I'm out.
And that's me. And that's the only thing I'm looking for this time of year,
Yep.
is to say how much brood do they have. I don't care. As long as I see some brood, and I'm talking about open brood, okay? I don't worry about capped brood this time of year myself.
Yeah.
So if I see an egg or a uncapped larvae, I'm good. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm good. She's there.
Yeah.
Okay, that colony's not in trouble. She's good. And so it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
That doesn't take long. And again, I have a tendency to pull the middle frames.
Yeah.
Okay, those outside frames are going to be the least utilized, and that's more likely to see maybe a little drone brood. So what? Let it be. Who cares? So I'll pull the middle frame or so, and again, that gives me working room then too. That I can move other frames. Now, before I put that frame back in there, if I need to look at another frame, I set that one down in front or put it in my work box. The bees prefer the work box, to be honest,
Oh, yeah.
all the time. It keeps them shaded. They feel more comfortable, so if they stuck in that work box. It keeps them out of the grass. And then that gives me room easily to pull the next frame over and look, and I see one I want, I put it right back, keep on going.
Yeah.
This time of year, it don't have to be in the same order, but there's nothing wrong with putting them in the same order,
Yeah.
okay? Now, in the early spring, I always put them in the same order, okay? And late in the fall, I always put them in the same order. But this time of year, it technically doesn't matter, you know what I mean? So you can do a little mix and matching. It still is not too late to do a split. Again, you could do a walk-away split. It's getting late enough for that, because remember, that's going to take, before you get a laid queen, you know everything's fine. It's going to take about 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so that puts you right at the 1st of September, which is not terrible late. So you still got time, but I still feel more comfortable having a queen in my pocket in the queen cage to do a split.
And I tell you another reason that right now probably a walk-away split probably wouldn't be my first choice. I've seen some colonies kicking drones out.
Mm-hmm. And again, when drones start getting kicked out, a couple of things are happening in my opinion. First thing that's happening is a dearth.
Yeah.
If anything's going wrong in the environment and the flow's not there, okay, nothing is coming in the door, productive coming in the door,
Yeah.
nectar-wise, one of the first things to go is the drones. They see, the bees see them as being the most expendable, okay? Why feed them if we can't support ourselves on a daily basis?
Boy, it's a good thing our women
People don't think that way, isn't that the story?
Boy, me and you'd be out of luck, wouldn't we?
We'd be in trouble, like tomorrow. But that is a sign of some stress. But typically this time of year, that's a nutritional stress from lack of nectar, okay? And so I wouldn't worry about it. Let the bees worry about that one, okay? Bees are real temperamental on drones, but they don't feel loyal to the drones, okay? And drones drift a lot too, you gotta remember that. Drones will go from colony to colony in a heartbeat. So if this colony doesn't want to feed them and kind of nudges them a little bit, well, they'll just go to another colony. They say, who cares, I'll go over here.
That's right.
And they'll usually, in a normal apiary, they'll find a colony that will take them. But that's not an issue. I wouldn't worry about their drones right now. Just wouldn't worry about them. But I feel more comfortable with a mated queen because you're just so much further ahead on the time schedule.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a big advantage of that. You've got a known product, shall we say, other than just who knows what you're going to get. And again, when bees get in a hurry, they'll cut corners on queen production, ain't no doubt. And so I don't like that. You don't get the best quality queens. And so, yeah, you can raise good queens this time of year if you use the right precautions.
Yeah.
Feeding your bees,
Gotta be in
sure
the right
to
situation.
That's right. Control that situation and you can do good. But when the bees themselves are doing it, is again, especially weather-wise, that's a little more uncontrolled, see. And heat can make a factor on that too, ain't no doubt.
Oh, yeah. So just talking about the weather and heat, there's not much out there blooming right now.
No, the bloom's really slowed down. I've been watching pretty hard, of course, like always. And I still see a little bit of clover blooming. I am seeing some clover blooming. And oddly enough, in the last week, here we've had a couple of showers, hard showers, good showers, okay? Matter of fact, last week we had 3 inches altogether.
Yeah.
Which has put us a little bit of ground moisture. The thing I've noticed most on that is my little Vitex tree out here, I thought was finished blooming. Bees will love it too, by the way. This time of year, bees will love that Vitex. They were just tearing it up. Pretty little blue blossom. They really worked it heavy. And they worked it all day long, from morning to dark. I mean, right at dark you see bees on it, which I like that. That's a good deal, because it's still producing nectar. Otherwise, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So, and I thought it was finished. Again, I went out there and I'd see just a little bit of color here and there, and occasionally I'd see a bumblebee monkeying around it, but the honeybees had gone. No more honeybee activity. So I said, well, it's over for the year. Oddly enough, after last week, I looked at it yesterday out there, and it's trying to rebloom. It's actually trying to rebloom. I don't ever remember seeing a Vitex trying to rebloom, but it's actually trying to rebloom, and the blossom's open enough that even today I looked, and there's bees working it again.
How about that?
I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah.
So again, it was a ground moisture issue. Of course, Vitex like heat, so heat doesn't bother them.
Yeah.
But it's a ground moisture issue. When they got ground moisture, it decided we can bloom a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of encouraging a little bit. But the bees were working that Vitex. I know those bees have been working the coneflower some.
Yep.
Okay, if you got the ornamental coneflowers that you plant around, the bees are working them some. And the thing I've noticed most, especially last week, and it sounds crazy, was crepe myrtles. The white crepe myrtles.
Yep.
The other morning, I was at a site that had a row of white crepe myrtles. And this was about 8 o'clock in the morning. They were just literally buzzing with bees.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you just sat there on individual blossom, just bee after bee after bee was working it. And every one of them had full of pollen on the hind legs.
Yeah.
They were really getting the pollen off of it. But they were working it heavy, I mean really heavy, which was encouraging. Same time, I did look at some pink ones that were in bloom, or early stages of bloom. Pinks bloomed a little bit later than the whites do, some reason or other. Yeah. And so I did look at some pinks that were in blossom. Guess how many bees I saw on them? Zero. None. So they have a preference. No doubt they have a preference. Now, I have seen them work some pinks, okay, but not to the extent they work the whites.
Yeah.
So there's a difference, and the bees have that preference. But they're working them pretty heavy. I was pretty encouraging, yeah.
Yeah, they've been working my garden pretty heavy too.
And that's the next thing we need to mention is about gardens. Because right now, the bees are working the gardens pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
The gardens have become more, shall we say, attractive.
Yeah.
Because of the lack of other stuff. And so right now some of your garden stuff is competing better than it would have a month ago even.
Yeah.
And again, and a lot of this stuff is in the mornings, okay, like your pumpkins. If you want to see bees in your pumpkin blossoms, better look at them in the mornings, okay? Usually by midday, it's over.
Yeah.
And the pumpkin blossom itself, what does it start doing? Starts closing up, yeah. And so if you go out there after work, you ain't gonna see much, okay? Because that activity happens in the mornings. The thing they're working real hard right now too is okra. Yeah. And they work the okra in the mornings, okay? And it's common to see multiple bees in the same okra blossom and they're just running around. Yeah. So they like it, they'll work it. Your lima beans, one of my favorites for this time of year, lima beans, okay?
You preach that
I preach lima beans a lot.
At the meetings.
But bees love lima beans. I mean, they do. They love lima beans. And this time of year, lima beans are really attracted to them. So they're definitely working the lima beans. Yeah. And again, but they're working your squash and your cucumbers, again, more in the morning than the afternoons. Yeah. I wouldn't count on anything in the afternoons.
Yeah. I got a bunch of hives. They're at the house sitting right beside my garden. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to go far. Mm-hmm. You know, and I didn't do that intentionally. That's just the way it worked out. And I always go down and cut my zucchini, squash, cucumbers early in the morning before I go to work. Mm-hmm. And a couple of weeks ago, there was so many bees in there working it, because I'm talking like 6:30 in the morning, that I've had to change my time a little bit because I was competing for room in there with the bees and the bumblebees and everything else. But
and I've seen that happen too. Even when you be picking cucumbers, it'd be a lot of bees working the cucumbers, and you say, "Ooh, am I going to get stung?" And those bees really could care less about you. Yeah. But if you smash one a little bit,
bad plan.
Bad plan. You got stung. But if you just mind your own business, cutting cucumbers, let them mind their own business, it's no problem. So there's no reason to be nervous. You know, that they're after you. They're not after you. No. That's the last thing they're after.
No. They're after that bloom.
They're after that bloom. Yeah, exactly. And again, that puts stress on them this time of year. Yeah. With the lack of bloom, shall we say? They know that. They know that, and so that makes them a little bit more intense when they're working their bloom.
Yeah, you can tell they're intense too because they're moving with a purpose. Yep. You know. Yep. They won't spend a lot of time in a bloom. Yep. They'll look at it, then they're gone. Yep. Because they're looking.
And a lot of times, especially on clover, regular white Dutch clover or Ladonna clover, you can watch the bees on their foraging activities and tell if they're getting much. Yeah. When you see that bee just all but land and then not hardly land just for a moment and then move on and move on, what's happening? They're not getting nothing. Yeah. Or very, very little. But when there's conditions are really good, you see that bee actually land and start walking on that same flower, you know, to the multiple facets of it. Yeah, it's finding more. Yeah. So you can tell kind of what they're finding by just watching the activity on it, which I think is fascinating myself. But again, the dearth situation will probably get worse over the next couple of weeks. Yeah. In real life. I mean, typically that's how it works for us. Yeah. And that's a normal situation, so don't get excited. Yeah. But be a little more careful working your bees. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one reason why I encourage people when they plant something for pollinators, plant something that blooms now.
Yep. Yep.
You know, in my yard I've got mountain mint blooming.
Mm-hmm.
I've got oregano, all kind of different herbs blooming. And see, right now is when they need it.
Yeah. And realistically, everything in the mint family, bees love.
Yeah.
That mountain mint, I've got a little patch of mountain mint over here, and the bees love it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the bees love it. And just to take your hand and just rub over the top of it, that odor in the air, oh gee, it's so good. I mean,
It's therapeutic, isn't it?
it is. And now you probably heard the story years ago. I'd take my herd bull over to my house in Huntsville, and I had a little pasture there just for him. Okay, bull pasture.
Right.
Okay, and then move him back when the time was right, you know, to go back to the cows. And again, he loved it. He got pony, I like to ride, okay? You know, riding the trailer, wave at all the girls as he went by, you know. But I had a mountain mint patch down there in the pasture, okay? And to start with, I was worried about he's going to eat it. He won't eat it. He don't like it, okay? But what he learned to do, he'd go down there, especially late in the afternoon, he'd lay in it.
Oh,
He'd lay in it. You see him in there just rolling and walling around. It looked like one of the buffaloes on TV, you know, in a dust bath situation. He just rolled around that stuff. You can smell that stuff in the air. Just get in the air. Just that fragrant mint odor in the air. Oh, it smelled so good. He'd get up there. He was so proud of himself because now he smelled good. You know what I mean? But he knew it. I mean, he knew it.
Oh, yeah.
Ain't no doubt. He wouldn't eat it, but he sure liked rolling around in it and playing in it. And of course, it didn't hurt it at all.
No.
Smashed it down a little bit.
If anything, it helped it.
Probably spread the seeds around, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
But he did like it. But anyway, it's a good plant to have. It can stand a lot of punishment too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it don't have to be fancy. I mean, it don't care.
Yeah.
I'd suggest not putting it in a real wet location though.
Yeah.
It prefers a little drier location than keep its roots drier than wetter, okay?
Right. Well, you got anything else?
Yes, I have. I thought about this a little bit ago, and I went back there to my library, my bee library, and I pulled a magazine. This is Gleanings in Bee Culture.
Oh.
This is the old model when they used the small version.
Yeah.
This is April of 1958.
Wow.
You probably wasn't keeping bees in April of 1958.
I wasn't keeping much of anything.
Well, oddly enough, this is about the time I started helping my grandfathers, okay, with their bees. And so I've got this old copy. Of course, it shows a airline stewardess holding a bunch of queen bees.
Yeah.
Okay. As a TWA stewardess. At the time, TWA was trying to promote themselves. They'd ship queen bees.
Huh.
So a lot of the queen bees from the south were getting shipped to the north by airlines.
How about
Okay.
that?
They actually promoted that. They wanted that business. Okay. And it even has a little note over here. Let me see if I can get to that and get it accurate here. Okay, it talks about that package contained 50 queen bees that were being shipped from the south to the north. These queens will head colonies shortly. Okay, and these colonies will store over 5,000 pounds of surplus honey in this one season. So you got to think what she's holding in her hands is going to produce enough bees to produce 5,000 pounds of honey.
Wow, that's a marketing.
That's amazing. Isn't that marketing?
That's a great marketing
Is that
program.
marketing? And of course, it mentions TWA here. But what I want to bring to your attention here, of course, like all bee magazines, it's got ads, right?
Yeah.
So we got an ad, 1958 ad for York's. Okay, York's is a famous bee outfit. Okay, still in existence, and they list their Italians, Starlines, and Midnights. Now, some people never heard of Starline and Midnights.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where Dadant developed a hybrid bee. Okay, so the hybrid Italian cross was called Starline. I can remember myself running some Starline bees.
Yeah.
Okay, you had to order Starline queens, of course. They were really good bees, real yellow looking bee, a really productive bee, okay? And of course the Midnights were a, let's see, I'm trying to say Caucasian, but it wasn't, it's Coniola. It was a Coniola hybrid, okay, on the Midnights, and they were real dark bees,
Right.
okay? But anyway, both lines were developed by Dadant. And our buddy Lawrence, what's his name? Lawrence.
Oh.
Come on. Oh God, what happened to me?
Yeah. I'm having a moment.
Me too. That's bad. We both had it at the same time.
Well, you know, it has been hot.
Yeah, it has been, but it ain't been that hot.
Is it Clarence?
No, it's Connor.
Connor, yeah,
Lawrence John Connor.
there you
And
go.
I apologize to him for forgetting his name for a
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, I'm sure he's gonna be watching.
And he's one of my favorite authors too, by the way. But he worked for Dan on these hybrid bees. Okay, he was the guy to keep the bloodline going for these hybrid bees.
Yeah.
Which was hard to do, to be honest, real hard to do, because it was a closed breeding cycle situation.
Right.
Real good bees. But here's what I want to point out to you. Okay, if you wanted extra queens, an Italian queen in 1958, you had to pay $1.45 for her.
Wow.
$1.45. Now, if you wanted one of these Starline queens, they're more expensive, okay? So a Starline queen, let's see here. I just had that just a second ago. Well, can't find it now. How about that? We'll see it here in a second. Okay, here it is. They were $1.75.
Wow.
More
Whole
expensive.
quarter more.
Yep, quarter more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 30 cents more, Bob Safert would tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so they cost a little bit more. But again, my experience with them was good.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you want a tested queen, you got to remember a tested queen, the one they have seen that she's laying brood, and not only brood, but female brood, worker brood.
Right.
Okay,
That's important.
a tested queen. That's important. If you want that, you got to add $1.
Oh, wow.
Okay, for a tested queen. Okay, so anyway, that kind of tells you the queen prices. And a package of bees, your typical 3-pound package, like we typically use today, that same 3-pound package, anywhere, if you wanted 1 to 24 of them, would cost you $5.70.
Now they're $150, right?
Yeah, well, 115 to 120, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, prices have gone up some.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, how about that? But again, it's interesting to look back at some of the old literature, and especially on the prices. I mean, if these guys would have seen the prices of queens today, I mean, they'd fall out. I mean, they'd just hooray, hooray.
They'd stay out there beekeeping all day long.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And again, so it's kind of changed. But again, some of the old ads are kind of interesting. Again, his Wilbanks, of course, they still in existence too. 3-pound package from Wilbanks with a young laying queen is $5.35. Okay, queens are $1.40. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
And they thought they were making money.
They thought they were making good money.
Yeah, they thought they were making good money. And obviously did okay because it's still in business.
That's right. That's right. All right, well, let's wrap this up. Like I said earlier, all of our meetings have been or canceled through the end of September. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to do these videos, and I urge any of you that have a question that you would like for one of us to talk about, either leave it in the comments on this video, either on the Facebook page or on our YouTube page, and we'll try our best to get to them. And you got anything else, Bob?
One other thing I've got, I did pick up the additional hats that we had asked about a while back.
Yep.
Okay, we got those in possession now. Then so I'm going to turn those over to Ann Slack, the treasurer.
Yeah.
Okay, because she can keep money and I can't. They don't trust me with money. And so we do have a new supply of khaki and your olive, just
Cool.
like you got on.
Cool. So we can keep
So
our
we
heads covered and keep
Yep.
the sun off our skull.
And don't let the sun bake your brains.
That's right. But mine's already pretty much baked.
Gone.
How about yours?
I'm that way. I'm getting thinner, and that makes a difference.
All right, well, look here. Thank y'all for watching the video. We enjoyed doing them, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.
All right.